r/AskReddit. OK Engineering 7790 says, what is the scariest thing you have witnessed in your lifetime? Fistantantalus says, when the nurse came into my hospital room and asked if I was feeling okay. I said no, and she said I was having a heart attack. I asked her if I was going to die. She said I was in the right place and they would look after me. I made peace with dying over the next few minutes, but they saved me. Aggressive Bubble 17 says, usually I appreciate the conciseness of some of these comments, but I need some more details here. Why were you in the hospital? Did she come in because you weren't feeling okay? How were you feeling symptom wise? How did she know it was a heart attack? Fistantantalus says, sorry, I was suffering from congestive heart failure. My heart was weakened from chemotherapy, and I had built up about 30 pounds of fluid around my stomach/and lungs. I couldn't eat, slept and hyperventilating after doing anything physical like standing up, going to the fridge etc. So I went to the hospital. They put a heart monitor on me. After 2.5 weeks the monitor went off at the nurse's station telling me my heart was going into ventricular tachycardia. She came in to tell me when she asked how I was feeling. I felt discomfort in my chest, but not really pain. I did feel nauseous though. Probelabelebstaloops says, I was on vacation in Puerto Vallarta in the early 2000s and saw a parasailer fall to his death after the rope broke and rifted into the side of a building and fell 10 plus stories. The sound of the body hitting pavement and reaction from the onlookers was bad. I will never parasail. OK Engineering 7790 says, that sounds absolutely horrible. I am so sorry. Lavethatdaddy says, I've had a gun pointed in my face twice in my life. Hopefully, never again. That was not my name says, I need more info here. Lavethatdaddy says, I got robbed at gunpoint when I was 14. I was taking a load of clothes to the laundromat in a bad section of Philadelphia, and they robbed me of my quarters. In my 20s, I was at a friend's house, drinking. His drunk ass decided the best way to show me his .38 was barrel first. Wakriza says, my older brother checking himself into the hospital because he didn't feel great and then being suddenly transferred to the ICU, put on feeding and breathing tubes, and dying within about a week and a half in that same ICU bed. He had cancer, had been on chemo, and his body reacted poorly to some of the drugs. He had always been so strong and capable. Even during chemo, he never let anything keep him down. He was a badass. I think about him every day. Mumblamamurblablablat says, I'm so sorry for your loss. As an Invasion 2000 says, not entirely a real thing, but if you've ever experienced hallucinations during sleep paralysis, that shit, frick, you up real good. Quijabo1 says, I had sleep paralysis once, and it was the most terrified I have ever been. Thought I was awake and just laying on my bed, and there was this dark shadow in one corner of my room. At first, I didn't really notice it. For some reason, once I figured out it was there, I somehow knew it was pure evil. I was staring at the essence of evil, the devil itself. I would be fine, as long as it didn't move or notice me. Then, all of a sudden, it starts coming toward me, and I can't move. Can't scream, nothing. Felt like I couldn't even breathe, and this dark creature/entity is creeping towards me. Miss Calsace says, I've had it happen once, and the only thing I could do was breathe harder. My wife, GF at the time, reached over and started petting my cheek. She later said she just thought I was having a bad dream. But it was an ominous presence. My eyes were closed, so I couldn't see it, but it was right next to my bed. I feel like it's the instinctual fear of a predator that animals have, but the switch just gets switched to fully on. Fair Maiden says, finding my husband dead from suicide. Daftmented says. Oof. Fellow widow here. Didn't lose my wife by suicide. It was just a sudden, out of the blue death at 40. Finding someone you love like that does take a huge toll on your mental health. Fair Maiden says. I'm so sorry to hear you're also a widow. It's one of the worst things to go through, and in my case finding him was the worst moment of my life. It's all consuming and so traumatic. It definitely changed me. r/AskReddit. Professional Owl 341 says. What's the most WTF thing you've ever seen happen at a wedding? Schwarzeslock says. Male stripper in a leopard print thong was hired to provide entertainment at the wedding I was attending. Nobody paid any attention to him or tipped him. He got bored and sat by the buffet tables. I felt sorry for him and joined him for the remainder of the reception. We played many games of tic-tac-toe. I was 6 years old. Jerry73 says. That was funny, lol. Villain in Training says. A male relative of mine got married. His mother died a couple of weeks before the ceremony. His widowed father showed up to the wedding with his new girlfriend, who was wearing the dead mother's clothes. I mean the dress she picked out for the wedding, her shoes and jewelry. Our whole family was shocked. They spent the whole day telling everyone they saw that it would have been a shame to not use it, since it was such a happy coincidence that his late wife and new girlfriend shared the same size. Needless to say, the groom loves his wife, but doesn't like to talk about the wedding. Barefoot and Wild says. That's insanely cruel and disrespectful. But I'm having a harder time getting over the fact that he moved on within weeks. Loveamabe says. Oh, she had been his side piece long before the wife died. Like Stotravel2 says. Groom smashes cake in the bride's face. Her dad immediately leads him outside and all you hear is a thump, and a moment later dad walks back in. Unamedbava says. Attended a wedding where they had hired private security to ensure the bride's father and stepmom wouldn't come in and disrupt everything. After security blocked them from going in, I guess they decided to get drunk in the car. They then came back and proceeded to beat the security guards up with their empty liquor bottles. Before the wedding I overheard the groom's family calling the bride paranoid and selfish, and that she should have invited her dad. Obviously, they had never met him before. Most Wonder 1871 says. They wanted their German Shepherd in the wedding. He walked down by the bride and took a dump. Hilarious. Gonzo Jono says. When the groom kissed the bride, all the guests did an artsy salute. I was staff. Minono says. What the frick, all of them. Thehotantha Brain says. During the father-daughter dance, father was grabbing the daughter's ass. I was in utter disbelief. Loveamabe says. That's disturbing. Soulmibud says. At the reception the best man and groom were drunk and started fighting. Cops were called and the groom decided he would win a fight with the 6'5" state trooper. They had to hog-tie him after he kicked 2 other officers. I was the photographer doing a favor for a friend. Alyssa Aketxo says. Long ago I worked at a banquet hall and witnessed a fully Nazca themed wedding. During the reception they played the audio of the proposal going out over the par at the track. It was fully unintelligible. BZZ Tiga Bagbgum Remezruawruam. Other highlights were the owner locking himself in his office to avoid the bride's father because he was threatening him to haggle out the costs. In the end we had to call the police because the bride in gown climbed over the bar to steal more sweet MGD after we had closed the taps and the event was over. Tink 2013 says. My nonna objected at my sister's wedding because she was marrying a progressive New York Jew and her grandchild would cease to exist if she married him. Professional Owl 341 says. Don't mean stuff that isn't to your taste, or there was a cringe first dance. I mean proper, situations. I'll go first. A female friend of the groom known to be a bit, very, volatile when drunk, and was generally known to be extremely unstable, called the bride a conch before the meal, and screamed abuse at the bridesmaids, and then curled a shit at the top of the stairs in the hotel venue. Of course, she was frog marched out of there and never showed her face at her work again, where she knew the groom from. Saladas says, I liked the story from yesterday about the drunk bride. Frick, I'm the stripper in front of her, prude sounding, friends at the bachelorette the night before, and the wedding getting cancelled in the morning. Actually I didn't like it, it made me sad, and a little horny. Sakura says, the bride's aunt was screaming at her and calling her a popular girl for no reason. Apparently they had gotten into a squabble earlier. She then stormed out. Taking a shit for cash says, the bride sharted a long brown skid on her dress. Designer at 393 says, my wedding. 2 things, 1 god brother 1. Blew out a candle at the table super hard causing the wax to blow back in his face, land all over his mustache and beard where it hardened on his face. Everyone who saw it laughed and no one attempted to help him remove it. He was too drunk to notice. 2. Went next door to the empty conference room and pissed on the track where the wires were plugged in the floor for the equipment. This idiot thought he was in a really nice bathroom. We were at a resort in Mexico. I thought he was gonna get arrested, but they were cool, just took him back to his room. He remembered nothing the next day. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.